Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audiovisual Services. Last week, we had a really great discussion with my friend Jeffrey Cobelli of Good For You Productions, and we were talking about video and storytelling. This week, we have on a real multimedia pro, and everyone is going to love her. But before we do that, let me just remind everybody how you can find us here at AVX Live. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube every Wednesday, 1 p.m. While you're on any of those channels, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're here live, then drop us a comment, be a part of the show. We love comments, except for one particular individual. Him I've banned for life, but everybody else is cool. If you don't get a chance to be a part of it live, go back, watch on YouTube. All 108 episodes are right there. And then look out on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn afterwards, as our friend Alexis is going to put together some short clips, or as my friend and a mutual friend, Andrew Castellano, would say, some shark bites. Anyways, I think that's enough of that part. Why don't I tell you a little bit about today's guest, which is Patricia Stark. As president of Patricia Stark Communications, Patricia provides personal and professional development coaching and training, focusing on public speaking, media training, leadership, talent development, body language, emotional intelligence, stress and anxiety relief, and peak performance. Patricia brings her years of experience as a veteran broadcaster with WABC, Fox, PBS, as well as a SAG-AFTRA on-camera and voiceover talent to her coaching and training strategies. Her book, Confidence: How to Trust Yourself, Tame Your Inner Critic, and Shine in Any Spotlight, brings wisdom and lessons that over 1,000 of her clients and students have learned along the journey. So that's pretty cool. So please welcome Patricia Stark.
Hi, Joe. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you today.
You know, that picture I see with another friend of ours,
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes, Melissa. Shout out to Melissa and shout out to Andrew. And yes, because the Business Council of Westchester, I've met so many wonderful people, and you included, Joe.
Oh, wow. You know, I feel like I just saw you.
We did just last night at the Hall of Fame Awards. I'm like a bad penny. I keep turning up in your life, Joe.
Well, it seems to be a sign that you were destined to be on AVX Live today. So
I think so. And really, I do appreciate you having me.
And how does it feel being on the other side of the camera for once?
I love it. You know, I actually, one of my favorite things, which many of my clients fear, is the Q&A portion when they have to present or get in front of a crowd. And I just really enjoy that challenge and just, you know, kind of seeing, do I have these answers? And if I don't, trying to figure out what might be a good one.
Yeah, well, I've only been sandbagged one time on Q&A.
Oh, really?
It was a little dicey that one time, but everything else has always been good.
It's always okay to say, you know what, I don't have the answer, but I'll find out and get back to you.
That's pretty much what I had to go with. I had to go with kind of a pat line. But, our friend Jeffrey Cobelli said he's glad that he went before you. He thinks you'd be a very tough act to follow.
Oh, no, I watched that interview and he did a great job. So no worries.
He's quite a storyteller. He's very good. He's very good. We actually, we played a few of his videos just last week and they were excellent.
Excellent.
But why don't you tell everybody, how did you first get involved in the personal and professional development training? I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so I started my career in journalism and broadcasting. And then throughout those years, I did a lot of corporate media. And as you know, a lot of corporations want a moderator that has that background. You know, at the time they were looking for an example of like a Diane Sawyer or a Katie Couric. So I would work in many corporations in their studios doing all kinds of internal videos. And one day I was at KPMG here in Northern New Jersey, and I was moderating, and some of the executives came down to be in front of the camera, and some of them were having interviews done or trying to read teleprompter, and it wasn't going so well. People were nervous, people were stiff, people were sounding like they were reading. I didn't want to be there till midnight, so I just started kind of coaching them through it by default, and we got out of there on time. And a couple weeks later, they called back and said, you know, we'd like you as our moderator and as an on-camera and voiceover talent, but that worked really well. Would you ever come back just to coach and train our people for
Mhm.
communication skills or public speaking in front of the camera? And that was kind of my light bulb moment of, ooh, I can hang my shingle and create my own business here. And that's really how it started.
Well, I've seen you in action in certain areas, and a natural would be the easiest way to, I guess, to phrase it. But
Oh, but
but
not
I think
always.
that's
Not always, and that's,
well,
and we'll get into this later, but that was my journey, and that's what the book is about. I was someone who had terrible social anxiety and was very terrified in the spotlight at one time, and
mm,
I've always brought that with me with compassion when I do my coaching and training.
well, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny you mentioned about teleprompter training, and because obviously we see that kind of a lot, and we always remind people, a teleprompter is not really for everybody. If they haven't used it, there's a learning curve. It's
Absolutely. Well, people think
and
it's
it's
just reading, and if you think
right.
it's just reading, that is going to sound like what it is, just reading.
Yeah, you're kind of missing the point of it,
Right.
Well, it's funny because sometimes we have situations where there's two people, and now you're trying to it's not really designed for that. So it's a little
Well,
harder.
I can fix that.
You can, and that's why you're here to try to help people through it.
Yes.
So I guess as you're trying to look at clients now, like what are the areas or the types of clients that you kind of try to focus on,
Yeah.
and the individuals too, I would imagine.
Sure. So it really runs the gamut. I mean, I do broadcast clients. I work with a lot of anchors and reporters and people that are trying to evolve from being in a producer role or writer or on the street reporter to get into the anchor chair. I have a lot of networks that send people my way for that. I work with a lot of corporate media and corporate executives, whether it is for public speaking or having to go on virtual, work or being in front of the camera for any number of reasons. So it really runs the gamut. I mean, in any given week, I might be working with a one-on-one individual that might have a speech coming up, or I have
Mhm.
two doctors right now that are going on the morning shows, and one is a regular on Good Morning America, and I help her prep every time beforehand. Harvard reached out to me recently. They're doing a whole series of master classes with some of their professors, and their professors now have to go on camera and they get connected with a celebrity. And, they're
Uh-huh.
great in front of a room, but now it's not so much of an easy transition to be in front of the camera. I have a lot of clients that are corporate clients where I will come in and do a training where maybe we're talking about public speaking fear, but then it also translates into communication skills and interpersonal skills, dealing with team dynamics and emotional intelligence. So there's so many layers that when someone asks me what I do, I say, have you got an hour? And I'm not that great at that 30-second elevator pitch because there are so many things. And as you could imagine, everyone has to communicate to
Mhm.
function and to be successful. And so much of it is, what's that internal communication? How are we communicating with ourselves, and what are we saying to ourselves? What are we visualizing? And how is that going to then impact our relationships, whether it's just our day-to-day relationships with our family or our coworkers, or when we are challenged and now we are in the spotlight, whether we like it or not, and we have to, kind of find that internal trust so that then we can communicate outwardly.
That's really interesting. The fact that you're bringing in personal conversations as well, which I don't know, I could probably use a lot of help with. But either way, we're going to take that off camera. But you mentioned the professors in Harvard and being in a room and then having to go on camera, which I know we saw a lot of, once COVID hit and people making this transition to a virtual environment. What did you see during that time?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people that are very good at being in a group. I can remember one time I was doing some coaching for a PR firm in New Jersey that works with a lot of financial experts. And I would coach them if they had to go on Bloomberg or CNBC, or maybe they were going to be giving a speech. And I remember one time the head of the PR firm said to me, "Oh, this guy is so good in front of a room and he works the stage and everybody loves him. He's going to be just great in front of the camera, but we just want to make sure." Well, it didn't translate that way. When the camera was in his face, he wanted to be big and expressive and presentery. And he couldn't just hone it down into that lens and really kind of grasp the idea that this is a one-on-one conversation with a human being. That lens is your viewer's eyes, the person you're connecting with. He kept wanting to work the room, be big, all of these different things. So it doesn't always translate. And with the pivot to Zoom and virtual platforms, it was easy for me because I was so used to being on front of the camera and knowing that I had to speak to that lens and really connect and really make it be a human connection. But that also was difficult because I love being with people, and I was kind of kicking and screaming that I felt like, could I still develop those same bonds and connections? And lo and behold, I was surprised that, we were eventually able to. But I think that I still see people struggling. People are still not knowing how to frame themselves correctly. I'm seeing their ceilings. They're looking down at us. They're like this in the frame, which makes us look so less personal, like we're right now far away, we're disconnected more, where television and media is an intimate media. And even though we're not broadcasters, we all grew up knowing what a great frame shot looks like, even though we don't realize that we do. So we know when something looks up close and personal and there's no distractions and everything is just right with lighting and framing and audio and all those things, to where we can just focus on the message and connecting and communicating with each other. There's still a lot of bad stuff that I see all the time that frankly just gets in the way and doesn't make people shine in their best light.
Yeah, we've definitely seen lots of that over the time. But it's because you're equating it to being in person, but they're very different, right? And that's kind of a really important perspective. It's kind of like I look at it as if you are sitting down having a one-on-one conversation with someone, you would probably be very attentive. Maybe you're leaning forward, right? You're doing all those things that you were taught, whether it was in school or for an interview or whatever it was.
Yes.
But I didn't see that when we went over to Zoom and Teams and all the virtual side. And you're right. I mean, we still have people that are looking over here while they're talking to here. And it's just bizarre,
Well, they're multitasking, right? And I think it was also a very stressful time for everyone. We were all pivoting and worrying about so many other things, right? And I think that by not getting that coaching and the best practices out of the gate, we all kind of were just trying to figure it out, and we let a lot go, being casual and not necessarily dressing up and all of these things. But we're at a different place now. We're in a very hybrid world now where we expect all of those things to be happening. And one real pet peeve for me is, like, I'm talking to you right now and I'm really resisting the urge to look down at your box, because I know that my connection is through the lens with you. And when I coach and train people, I have to look away because I need to see facial expression and body language and other cues when I'm working with them. But it's really hard for people. And I think that you and I, or some other technological genius, if we could create the app that makes that lens bounce around the screen to the boxes so that we can literally look and talk with each other, I think that that's probably on its way and already being developed, but I can't wait for that.
That's interesting. I like this idea. We're going to work on this after the show, I think. But no, it's a very good point. Because even as I have some things that I'm trying to read on one side. I also operate the podcast, and so there's a number of little fun things that come up on screen. And so if I know that I see a comment there, I see our friend Jim Marlowe, and he's referencing that at the beginning of the pandemic, very few people had enough technique to communicate properly. So I think he experienced and saw the same things that we saw.
And I think it is difficult. We let a lot of it go in the beginning because we all got it. We understood it was a struggle and it was a pivot and it was uncharted territory. But we're quite a few years out from that now. And it's amazing how, I don't know if people just don't understand the importance of it. They don't realize that it's another communication medium that's just as important as any of the other. But I think it's important to have people pay attention to it. And I think that what it also lends itself to is that when I work with people, they seem to be different people in different mediums. They might be a different person in the front of a small conference room, where then they're different on stage, and then they show up different in front of the camera or different on virtual. And I really try to help them get that all congruent and explain that we just want you to be a human being having a human being conversation with us. And if that's the very least thing that you target, you're on the right path.
I think that's really great. That's probably very helpful to to all of your clients, honestly, to have some sort of message that is consistent, and their delivery being consistent in whatever way that is.
And feeling authentic in all of those places, right?
Right. I notice that you also you mentioned moderating and keynotes, and a lot of our events usually have between 250 to 500 people in the audience. That's a typical event for us.
Yes.
Any tips for our clients when they're making large scale presentations?
Yeah. So the one nice thing about all of the different layers of what I do that my clients really like and appreciate is that I'm still out there doing this too. I'm giving keynotes, I'm speaking, I'm appearing as a guest expert, talking about my books, talking about a lot of the coaching and training that I do. I'm on virtual platforms in the media all the time. So I'm always still learning and fine tuning, and certainly don't have all of the answers. And yes, still get those nerves sometimes when you put a high price on things, and still walk out and sometimes have that imposter syndrome that all of my clients have when you walk out into all of these faces, sometimes strangers, sometimes familiar faces, but all staring at you. And I think that some of the best keys that have worked for me that I've learned over the years and that I've seen work with my clients is something that Seinfeld said many, many years ago when someone asked him about confidence and coming out to an audience. And let's face it, comedy audiences are the toughest, and that's where you're going to get the
Absolutely.
hecklers. People are drinking, and he always said that right before he walked out on the stage, he just said, what, I love these people. I just am deciding that I love these people before I even walk out there. And walking into that energy and feeling like there was a way that you could give value and be of service. And, he would say maybe help them forget their fears or their problems of every once in a while. But to walk out into that situation and just be like, these are just human beings like me. And everybody is struggling with something. Everyone in that audience is dealing with things at home, other problems at work, relationships, you name it. And I think if they just understand that you're there for them to somehow be of service, to somehow give value, and it's not the all about you show. Aren't I so great? Aren't I so smart? Aren't I so fabulous? I think we smell that a mile away. And audiences are really forgiving when they know that you care and that you're really there to help
Mhm.
and to serve them in some way. And they'll let almost any faux pas go if you're just fine with it too. And you come out there and you try to have those moments. It doesn't matter if it's 10 people, 10,000 people, everyone hears you in their head, one person at a time. And they all want to feel like you're having a conversation just with them. So some of the best speakers that I've watched and that I try to emulate work the stage. They walk up to one area or one person, they settle, they balance themselves, and they have a conversation, full attention, 100% attention, just right there. Then they walk away, then they come over here and they do that on this side of the room or with this person. So by trying to at least aim for making all of those areas and all of those people feel like you're with them and not separate from them. And I think that that's another important key. Even though you're the person on stage in the spotlight, try to get out from behind a podium. Try to be with your audience and not feel like you're separate from them. They like that better, and it makes things a lot less frightening for you to feel like you're not with them and one of them.
So is that fear of public speaking, is that still one of those top things that everybody is concerned about?
Absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
most of the people that I deal with are highly intelligent people who are really
Right.
good at what they do. And very intelligent people have very strong survival skills. And what are survival skills? That's that primitive part of our subconscious in the back of our mind where we want to, protect ourselves, where we want to think worst case scenario. If everything goes south, how am I going to have a plan? How am I going to deal with this? But what makes that happen then is we start to visualize the worst case scenario. Our self-talk and what we're seeing before we walk out into a situation like that isn't so good. And it puts us in sometimes panic mode, reactionary mode, where we've got that nervousness and that anxiety. So it's happening because we are thinking that we're protecting ourselves, but it's working against us and not serving us well. So this is what we all share in common. You know, it's tough to stick your neck out there. It's tough to feel vulnerable and to feel like people might be judging you. But again, I think what helps with that is trying to say to yourself, this also means I'm being highly self-focused. And another word for that is self-centered, right? So if we try to launch into everything being highly other-focused, and that goes back again to how can I be of help here? How can I be of service? How can I take the spotlight off of myself and put it on my audience and be there and resonate with them and understand what their needs are? That in itself can help with a lot of public speaking fear.
That's a great tip. You know, I do think that people sometimes get too much in their own head and they forget their purpose. And so I do think that that's a great tip. And when I've seen people really connect, it's powerful. I mean, it feels powerful.
It does. It does.
You could be one of 3,000 and you still get it. Like you feel the energy. You
That's
really
right.
do.
Absolutely. But with that being said, we all have good days and bad days. I know people that knock it out of the park one day and another time don't have such a great presentation or a panel event or whatever they're doing. And we also have to cut ourselves slack and be kind and know that it's not going to always be the best that we've got to give, you know.
Well, Patricia, I think you have a fan and there's been a comment.
Oh.
I have a graphic to go with this comment. He doesn't know that, but an old friend of yours, Ryan Finch, says that I make faux pas all the time. So that's good news. Now, the reality is I couldn't even spell that. So now you might not remember Ryan Finch.
Of course I remember.
You actually did an interview with him.
Not only did I do an interview with Ryan, but I knew Ryan when I spoke at our college years ago as well.
Well, they seem to remember you. So that's good news.
Hi,
Very good news. Of course, Ryan did 100 episodes and then, well, this show, and then he said he couldn't take it anymore.
Oh,
so,
boy.
you know,
well, that's a lot.
We don't cut him any slack, but that's okay. Well, when you're doing your keynote, are there particular topics that you focus on just in general when you're dealing with your clients?
Yes, I actually have a new one that I have been getting some really great feedback on, and I just named it, so I want to make sure. Unlocking Calm. A lot of clients are coming to me now, and they're saying there's a lot of stress and anxiety going on out there beyond communication skills. I have one very large bank in the city that's hiring me to do a presentation on just trying to deal with the unknown. They're going through a lot of changes. There are some job security issues going on. There's a lot of stress and anxiety and unknown. So just coming up with different strategies of, you know, how to deal with the waiting game and how to kind of not be in panic mode and what can you do on a daily basis to, you know, find your calm and confidence, which is that term that I have, you know, trademarked. Confidence, which is the name of my book. And then I literally just had, it's the 9th Judicial District of New York reach out requesting the same. You know, as you can imagine, people that work in law enforcement and the jury system deal with a lot of domestic issues and a lot of intense situations. So, you know, the communication skills, as I mentioned earlier, aren't just our outward, you know, confidence and public speaking and body language and all those things, which of course I also train, but having that foundation of calm and self-trust internally when you launch into your day to be able to deal with it, whatever communication situation or interpersonal communication situation comes your way is really key. And having strategies to set the foundation for your day, each day, whether it is just dealing with your daily communications or when you have a big moment when you have to be in front of other people. So there's a lot of those type of keynotes. I did an emotional intelligence one for a large library system recently. I went down to DC for a big automotive alliance. Did some training, a keynote first for them, and then broke off into different cohorts to do a more public speaking training and communication skills training. And, you know, they might be lobbying or testifying, you know, in front of the Capitol, or, working, trying to advocate for, better emissions, or different things. So, and then another day I was doing some Sherlock Biosciences up in Boston, helping them just deal with their communication skills in the healthcare industry. So I've outlined this so that clients can, kind of get a sense of all of the different things that I do. And I think if you asked me any industry right now, I could probably say, yes, I've done something in that industry, because it's been quite a few years, and I think I've hit them all at this point, to tell you the truth.
Well, it sounds like all of those skills, cross all boundaries anyways, because it's communication is really what you're focused on.
It is. And it might be leadership skills, or I do a lot of women's leadership and leadership development. I do even public speaking for kids, and body language things. I don't want to keep going on, but there's quite a few topics, as you can imagine, that is under this umbrella.
I can't imagine. Now I get it. Now I get why that bio was so long.
And I gave you my short one, Joe.
I know.
Hard on, but yeah, I mean, I'm really blessed. I enjoy the work that I do, and the book kind of came up because it was so many of the clients and students that I would work with. It was the theme. Everyone kept saying they wanted to find their calm, or they wanted to find their confidence in different situations. And as I said earlier, I could have someone that could be really confident, really proficient and expert, and even famous at what they've done and what they've achieved, but yet they still can get that imposter syndrome when they're trying to go into a new direction, or do something that is out of their comfort zone, or they're putting a high price on something, or many people still beat themselves up. We've all got that annoying little child that's like a squatter in the back of our mind, that is the inner critic, right? And it's not going to go away. But a brilliant person and mentor years ago said to me, but you can stop taking direction from it. And that's what we try to help people put in perspective and understand, and not say, oh, I shouldn't be nervous, and then beat yourself up about being nervous. Of course you should be nervous if you give a darn and you care. And it's a good thing to care. And, to not say, oh, I should be this, I should be that. Again, just get out there and do your best to give value and be of service and be other focused. That really does fix a lot of problems.
And where can people, I know I actually ordered the book on Amazon, but where else can people get the book?
So sure. So I have Calvin's right here. This is How to Trust Yourself, Tame Your Inner Critic, and Shine Any Spotlight. It's in Barnes & Noble, barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, your favorite bookstore. If you're in Poland, this is the Polish version. And there's even a version in Asia that I don't have the cover of right now. Yeah, you can find it in any of those places. And Kenny, my very good friends at Books and Greetings right here in Northvale, New Jersey, is also somebody I like to send people to, because he hosted my first book signing during October of 21, which you could imagine was still COVID. What a time to launch a book, right? Everybody joked about during COVID that they had all this free time. Maybe they should write a book. I signed my book contract on January 15th of 2020. And throughout all of that chaos and upheaval and nervousness, I had to write that book and then launch it when we were still in the thick of it. But it's pretty evergreen. It's pretty universal. And it's better than a business card. It really helps me connect and reach a lot of people that I might not have normally been able to find, or have them find me and reach them.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. I think all of these things, I know as a small business owner, I know that these are constantly skills that you have to work on, because sometimes you get very involved in kind of the nuts and bolts, and you forget that you have an outward communication that you have to provide pretty much every day. And that can be to clients, or it can be internally. And either way, that communication is really important. That's why I thought it was so interesting on the personal side, like how you could then take that and what your judicial system and law enforcement, and how that's going to apply to them. I think that's really interesting.
Well, all speaking is public speaking, unless you're standing in a room talking to yourself, right?
I feel like that a lot, though. Oh,
Although there is some time we should be in a room speaking to ourselves. I'm sure. I mean, it's not bad to do that either, and reflect. And those are some of the mindfulness and meditation skills that I even talk about in the book, as far as that pre-paving and that pre-planning, and doing some of that inner work to make sure that we're in good hands with ourselves. So that people can feel like they're in good hands with us. I always use the analogy of a pilot getting on a plane.
mhm.
If he or she gets on that plane looking the least bit agitated, nervous, fidgety, or uncertain, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about getting off that plane, right? So, we all are kind of the pilot of our own lives, and we want to make sure that we program that autopilot, so that which is our subconscious, so that it takes care of us when we are in a high stakes or nerve wracking situation where we can get all primitive on ourselves, and that inner critic can take over. And we have to remember to pull out our inner coach and talk to ourselves the way that we would hopefully talk to someone that we're mentoring or helping through a situation. But unfortunately, we're not always good at that, right?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. When we usually when we're running a production, when we see people, they're usually at their most tense, right? They're anxious. It's a large crowd. Maybe it's always very important to them in whatever capacity.
Yes.
It's a big deal. We're usually dealing with the executive level team in every capacity, whether it's fundraising or it's corporate, it doesn't really matter. And so we always find that if we're calm, that helps them.
Yes.
If they think we know what we're doing, they will be they'll present better. They'll do a better job there, because they're not going to have all that anxious energy that's just looming, like has them all knotted. And
Yes, that's very true. That
we have to send them to you beforehand, I think.
Well, yeah, I'd be thrilled for that. I'm actually working with an anchor right now who is at a kind of up and coming new network that's a national network, and they don't quite have things worked out. They haven't worked out all the kinks, and this person really has been struggling a bit because it's a little bit of chaos going on around them when now they have to go live on the air. And
Mm.
one of the things we've been working on is, how do you kind of be the calm in the storm, and how do you maneuver when you can't control so much that is going on around you, but you're the one that has to kind of keep it all together, if not for yourself, for others, or whatever the situation may be. And strategies of getting your breathing in control. And again, what are you telling yourself about the situation, and what are you envisioning? And understanding that if you are getting yourself in check, then you are more likely to respond rather than to react. You're
Mm.
able to get your emotions more in check. And really, once you get that breathing in check, that's the biggest thing. Because otherwise, when you start to feel like you're having that outer body moment and you're not able to handle your physiology, you can't think straight. I mean, studies show that when we are in a stressful or anxious situation, our cognitive ability declines by as much as 70%. So we really can't think straight. And our language skills even decline by about 70 to 80%. So when you suddenly feel like you can't get the words out and you can't, manage, you're actually experiencing a real physiological kind of storm that's happening. So
Yeah.
whatever we can do to collect ourselves and get ourselves in that inner trust mode is well worth the effort.
That is good advice for everyone, I think. I think everyone has had that moment,
Oh my
whether it's in their personal lives or professional lives, but everyone has had that moment where
God.
their breathing's off and you're
So I
you don't know
still
what to
do.
do.
I still do. I do a lot in the medical space and healthcare industry, and I do a lot of it's called CME training, continuing medical education. And we go
Mhm.
live, and they'll beam me into like Ruth Chris Steakhouse all over the country. And literally, I get there, and I've been working with them for years. They'll hand me a script right beforehand, and you know what medical terminology is like, and some of
Yes,
these
I do.
pharmaceutical names or drug names, and I don't want to sound like the hired help, so I put all this pressure on myself to really get that medical terminology down. Talk about a panic session when you're about to go live soon and you don't want to mess up one of those words. So anything I do outside of that feels like a piece of cake, because that's one of the hardest things I still continue to have to navigate.
Yeah, those are the ones where we're just barely awake in the back of the room because we don't understand anything they're saying anyways. But
Right, but I have to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Even if I don't, I gotta fake it.
yeah, you really do. In your role, you really do. When is it that it makes sense for people to bring in, a talent like yourself?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I don't know that I know the full answer to that. I think that certainly in media, there was when I worked in media and still do sometimes, even back in the day, there were always talent development coaches that would come in, to help with on-camera presence and all of those different things. And then I think in leadership and development, training and development in corporations, certainly presentation skills were something that have been around for a very long time. But
Mhm.
now so many companies are focusing on wellness and also team building and company culture. And anytime that you can bring someone in, I think that helps people excel in finding more ways to help with their mental health and to help them get through the day and have better interpersonal skills and relationship skills. It's only going to benefit the individuals, but it's also going to help companies be more successful because when people feel more balanced, they're going to obviously be more productive in so many ways. So, I'm so blessed that my work gets to focus on good news because I come from a world
Yeah.
of news and there's a lot of bad news out there. And if we're not careful, we can be inundated by it. And that's one of the reasons I chose to no longer work in the industry, I think. And for me to have some small part in helping people to not only feel better with themselves, but manage daily stressors, manage communication challenges, and ultimately be more successful in their lives to where they help themselves, their families, and their companies, man, I feel like that is a calling and something that is really such a blessing. And I'm so fortunate to do this kind of work for that reason.
Well, you're seeing the impact, direct impact. You're having a positive, impact on people's lives, and that's excellent.
Yeah.
I have really only one more question for you because I know you're very busy. I've seen the list of
I love
things you do.
talking
I
to
mean,
you. I'm happy.
I don't even know how you can do all this stuff in one day, but but I guess you're so active in helping others and in their personal and professional coaching. What do you do when you're not working?
Yes, so it is true that my work is my play many times, not all the times. I have tough challenges as well, but when I just want to relax and unwind, and this is going to sound terribly book smart, which I was not growing up, but I really do love reading. I love books, and I have this huge bookcase here, and I literally just found this really cool bookcase that looks like a grandfather clock. I'm also a Victorian decor girl. I love going shopping in
Hmm.
yard sales and antique stores, and I love Victorian decor. And I found this really can't show you right now, but it looks like a fake grandfather clock. And you open it up, and it's a bookcase inside. So that's where I have really some of my very special books that have impacted my lives and helped me find my calm and confidence along the way. And
Wow.
any authors that are friends of mine or that I've worked with. So definitely that all of those things I just described give me my relaxation. And then
Right.
I love going biking. I bike between 10 and 70 or 80 miles a week when the weather is nice. I really enjoy getting out there
Wow.
because I can, as a woman, I go much further and into different places on my bike that I might not walk because I feel like I could get away if I had to. I know that sounds terrible, but I'm a little bit more courageous in where I'll go when I'm on my bike. So.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool all around, So you're having fun, you're getting exercise, and you're exploring new frontiers at the same time.
But I do have to admit, I carry my phone on me, and I've been known to stop more than a few times and have ideas downloaded that I have to dictate onto my notepad because I get a lot of good ideas and thoughts when I'm on my bike as well.
That makes sense. I did see we had a comment here. Let me just bring this on screen. This is our friend Jeffrey, and he's referencing that sometimes he speaks in front of kids and teenagers because he's teaching film classes, and he's asking if there's any tips to engage the youth.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
a
good
great
question.
question. It really is a great question because boy, can any audience can be a tough audience, but when you feel like you're not resonating or you're not clicking, and you can look at a 5th grade class and feel extremely old, right? So I do speak at a lot of colleges. I'm an adjunct professor at a college. I talk to a lot of kids in both high school and middle school. And I find that, I don't want to like talk down to them, because they're at all different levels too, and they're much smarter than we give credit to, just because we think that they're younger. But I think that a lot of times I will sit. I don't necessarily stand up. I'm less formal. I'll ask them a lot of questions about how they feel about things. I try to put myself back at those ages when I'm speaking with them. I'll try to find out what's important to them, and again, realize that their minds are in a different place, and they're looking at the world in a different way. But, I think that making it very interactive and asking a lot of questions. And what I will also do is I will save questions, because they also are struggling with confidence at some of those ages too, and they may not want to ask questions. So I learned pretty quickly that just because an audience doesn't have questions doesn't mean that you are horrible. They're just too afraid to ask questions, right? So I will bring, general questions with me, and I'll say things like, oh, I spoke with a class about your age recently, and they were interested about this, or this was a concern of theirs. And that really can get the conversation going when they feel like, oh, she's already talked about this, and I'm opening the gate to certain topics. That really works very well.
Those are good ideas. Definitely good ideas. And hold on, we have more notes. Oh, here we go. Jeffrey's back in. He seems happy with the work you're doing here today. So that's...
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That is definitely a good thing. You attract a lot of people because they all want to hear you, and you're getting everyone engaged and excited. And I watched you do that on site in your many different roles, and it's very impressive.
Well, I thank you so much. I will just add that I'm a person of very deep faith, and I ask for a lot of help. So I'm not out there doing it alone, but I take my work very seriously. And as I said, it's a privilege, and it feels like something that, I'm supposed to be doing.
I think that's pretty important too. Kind of makes everything more fulfilling.
Yeah, it does.
Well, listen, I don't want to tie you up, Patricia. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
I am sure I'm going to see you very soon at some point.
Well, I very much appreciate it. Again, if anybody wants to reach me, it's patricia@patriciastark.com. I work with all levels of individuals and large corporations, small businesses. Again, one-on-one individuals that might be struggling with calm and confidence or communication skills. So just send me a note, and I'm happy to see how I can help.
That's great. That's very good. All right, Patricia, we will talk soon. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about all of this with you, Joe. And it's great to continue to get to know you more. And I hope that we, again, get to do more together in the future. So thanks so much again.
Absolutely. Take care now.
Take care. Bye.
Well, we got some great tips today from Patricia. She is a true pro, and she really covers all multimedia, from being in front of the camera to helping others be in front of the camera, or to be in front of audiences. And that's what she's talking about, whether it's small audiences, one-on-one conversations, or large audiences. And I've seen her in action. She is excellent, really very well-spoken. And if you get a chance, please, her book is listed here. I'm going to drop it in the comments for everybody so that they can go find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, your favorite bookstore. As she was mentioning, it's called Confidence: How to Trust Yourself, Tame Your Inner Critic, and Shine in Any Spotlight. So listen, that's really all we have for today's show. I don't know if I can top any of that stuff, so we'll wrap this up quickly. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube every Wednesday at 1 p.m. While you're there, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. But I think that's how we're going to wrap it up today. So thank you, everyone. And everybody have a great week. Okay. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.